This is the Anthony check and balance. We're good, we're good.
We're waiting for Mr. Rosen.
Are we live now?
Yes.
All right, I'll behave.
You were always live, we know that. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Abington High School Board meeting for Wednesday, May 7th. Would you all please rise and pledge the flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Are we ready for roll call?
Right. Mr. Abdallah,
Here.
Mr. Azar, Mrs. Henderson. Here. Mrs. Hillebrand,
Here.
Mrs. Karam, Mr. Moran,
Here.
Mr. Robeson.
Here.
Mrs. Tierney.
Here.
And Mr. Acker.
Here. Okay, may I have a motion to approve the agenda for this evening's meeting?
So moved.
Second.
On the motion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Abdallah,
Yes.
Mr. Azar, Mrs. Henderson,
Yes.
Mrs. Hillebrand,
Yes.
Mrs. Karam, Mr. Moran,
Yes.
Mr. Robeson,
Yes.
Mrs. Tierney,
Yes.
and Mr. Acker.
Yes. Just a quick
7,
point
nothing.
of order, Dr. Schaefer, are we, do we not have any minutes to approve tonight from prior meetings?
We probably omitted that, and we have not learned from our
I
mistakes.
should not have asked.
All right, yep, yep.
I don't actually. So I'll ask for a motion to approve the minutes of the meeting of, meetings of April 21st?
This is a time our Newton Ransom students come up and give us some leadership advice.
Yeah. It would be the minutes of the meeting of April 16th. I believe on April 16th, we approved the minutes on April 2nd. So I believe it's April 16th.
Yep.
Moved?
So moved.
Second.
On the motion? All in favor? Roll call?
See, Mr. Abdallah,
Yes.
Mrs. Henderson,
Yes.
Mrs. Hillebrand.
Yes.
Mrs. Karam, Mr. Moran,
Yes.
Mr. Robeson.
Yes.
Mrs. Tierney.
Yes.
And Mr. Acker.
Yes.
7, nothing.
Thank you very much. Okay. I believe we have a presentation next, so Dr. Schaefer, I'm going to turn it over to you, although I think the first subject is not going to be the varsity girls wrestling.
No, not yet. I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Fraunfelker.
So good evening. Newton Ransom is here tonight to represent our student leadership team that we have at the school. So that you're actually going to hear mostly from the kids tonight, but we have 3 groups of students. We have our Comic Council members, we have our Comic Captains, and we have our Big Buddies. And I'm going to let them explain to you what they do in these roles. So we are celebrating student leadership tonight from Newton Ransom. Okay, so will our Comic Council students come up?
Our Comic Council is new this year. It is a group of 3rd and 4th grade students. In order to be selected to be on Comic Council, you needed to complete an application.
Comic Council gave me a chance to talk about my school and my feelings about school. I also got to represent the ideas and feelings of other students in my 3rd grade class.
We got to share and take turns talking about our experiences at Newton Ransom. We were able to talk about things we would like to see added to our school. We were able to talk freely.
I wanted to be on Comic Council because I like to share my opinion about the school. I like how you get to talk openly about school-related things.
So will our Comic Captains come up now?
The qualifications of a comic captain are being respectful, responsible, and ready in all classes and in the entire building. You need to try your best and work hard at all times. You need to be a leader.
There is an application process in order to be a comic captain. You can complete the application at any time, and you can be a comic captain more than one time during the year. Teachers and aides and the principal are able to review the applications. Every Friday, 2 comic captains are chosen for the following week.
The responsibilities include passing out star cards to any student in the school when you see them following any of the 3 R's. Hand out the golden awards to the winning classrooms on Monday morning during announcements. You are a teacher helper for the week. You set an example for the younger students.
It is a great feeling to be selected as a comic captain. When I was selected, I was happy because I wanted to give out star cards.
Okay, and our last student leadership role are big buddies. So will our big buddies come up?
The Big Buddy program is new to our school this year. We work with some first and second grade students. We greet them in the morning in their class line. We walk to their classroom with them. We get them started with their morning routine, such as completing papers or handing papers in. We review school rules and expectations for the day. We encourage them to do their best and follow directions. Our buddies look up to us and look forward to this part of their week, and so do we.
As a big buddy, some of the character traits that you will need to show are reliable. We will need to remember to greet our little buddy in the morning. Responsible. Have a good work habit in our classroom. You are supportive to your little buddy. Be a good listener to your little buddy. Also, at the end of the week, we make sure to check in on our little buddy to see how they are feeling, how was the week and how are they feeling. For an example, are they excited for the weekend?
When we got paired with our little buddy, we did an interview to get to know them. Some of the questions were about their favorite things, like their favorite food, game, and color. It helped us to get to know them It helped us to get to know them better and for them to feel comfortable with us. One of the things we do before we leave our little buddy is read a motivational statement with them. After a few weeks, they were excited to show us that they could recite it all by themselves. This motivational statement says, "This week I will believe in myself, be positive, work hard, and always try my best." We say this statement so that we can leave them with a great attitude.
They did a fantastic job. We're super proud of them. They're great leaders in our school. They're respectful, responsible, and ready every day. So we're so happy that they were invited tonight to celebrate. Mrs. Gaidula is our school counselor, hiding behind there, also doing some of the great work with the kids as well. But I think we would like to recognize their names too, because we didn't get all their names. They came up and told us, and they were their own words. They worked on their own words to share with you tonight. They're super excited.
Elias
it's going to take you places. So thank you so much for everything you've done. Go with Enrico, and then we'll go to Jim. Enrico, you're on deck. Yeah.
Nobody told me, do I get to leave after this, or?
But you have to follow that.
All right.
You really don't want us to answer that, do you?
No, I think do you all have a copy of the proposal, or do you need, if you need it up there, I think it's on the agenda.
Nope.
I'll find it.
No.
I emailed it over today. I don't know if you got it or not.
You don't have to read it verbatim. We've
No, I
got a
won't.
copy
I
of
won't.
it, but you can kind of
Yeah,
highlight.
summarize it,
Yep,
right?
yep.
Okay. Well, thank you for hearing this today. We were presented an idea, a proposal, initially by Mr. Kevin Manning, who's in the audience, to start girls wrestling in Abington Heights. That was a little over a year ago, and since then it has kind of taken off within District 2, PIAA District 2. And girls wrestling right now is currently the fastest growing high school sport in the United States. With more schools getting on board, we have a very strong feeling that Abington Heights would be able to put together a very competitive program in girls wrestling. Right now we have, it was mostly at the junior high level. We had about 3 or 4 girls that were participating over the last couple of years. But we feel strongly that if we create the opportunity at the high school level and make an official program out of it, that we'll get more participation. And we'll see that grow over a number of years. I listed in here for you just some schools that are currently participating that have teams, including Honesdale, Wallenpaw, Peck, and Delaware Valley, which would be typical teams within our league that we would compete against. And also in the Wyoming Valley Conference, there are 3 or 4 other schools, including Crestwood, Wyoming area, or Wyoming Valley West, rather, and another school, maybe it is Wyoming area, that have girls wrestling. So if you look at it from that perspective, there's definitely enough programs locally where we could put together a schedule. However, just like the boys, girls wrestling, I've heard, is mostly tournament-driven right now. The participation, because a lot of teams don't have full rosters, they participate in tournaments, and then they pay per player for however many entries they have. So in our case, in this year, you'd be looking at a very low cost if it was a per player entry, because right now our roster is not very large. Once we would start to generate more numbers, which I would imagine by year 3, we would probably get up to about 15 to 20 on a roster. Then, hopefully we can start to put them in as a team fee and instead of the individual. But, the flip side of that is with powerlifting, a lot of our tournaments are the same way, where it's per person entry fee. So it wouldn't be very uncommon for us to do it that way. There could be some constraints or some challenges right away in terms of like locker room spaces, things like that, where right now we have girls changing in a bathroom when we have a tournament. If we host a wrestling tournament, our boys have a locker room, girls have to use a bathroom because we don't have a dedicated locker room space where we would be able to place them at that time. That would be something that we would have to make an adjustment for. I think practice times, right now, our girls practice congruently with the boys. They just wrestle against each other, where if we start to develop more of a roster size, we may have to separate those practices, which would mean gym space time, trying to find those places to put it. And that could impact the youth program. I know right now both our junior high and varsity wrestling teams practice here at the admin building, and then we also have Summit Wrestling that is co-ed that comes in after those teams are done. So that could push that back a little bit. We also have an option with the auxiliary gym that we could look into and try to carve out some time there, either for the youth league or for the girls. So there are ways to manage it. It just can get a little tricky for us. Mainly for me, I think, I've heard Kevin's proposal. I've met with him and Coach Tioni to try to figure out the best way to present this, that it was going to make the most sense for our district. And we feel strongly that appointing a new head coach for girls wrestling would be the right avenue to go. I know initially it was proposed to hire an assistant coach that would be under the umbrella of the boys wrestling program, and I don't feel like that's the best thing for us to do. I think it would be best for us to hire a head coach for girls that has experience coaching girls, not necessarily has to be a female, but would be beneficial if it were, just for the locker room situations, to make sure that we had safety and security there. I think if the program continues to grow, we could then demonstrate that there would be a need for an assistant coach for that program, and or there could be the option of making it varsity and junior high combined, with the head coach being the varsity coach and the assistant managing the junior high program. So there's a couple of different routes to go with that. And looking at our salary scale right now, I think it would be very comparable to what we have for our new hire coaches, which I think I listed in the proposal here for your view. But yeah, it's minimal cost when you look at it from that perspective. But it is something that would add to us in terms of like scheduling. We'd have to find another place on the map for another event, another tournament. If we were to host, like Kevin had suggested, many of them will be on the road because they are all tournaments. Transportation, with the numbers being low, we could probably take school vans if needed. Unfortunately, some tournaments may be at a distance where it might not be as safe to do that, but we would definitely consider those options. And I do believe that the community would support it, and I think we would have a pretty strong booster presence as well, which would help support some of the costs. So with that, I'll take any questions you have. Yes.
Enrico, do you have anyone potentially in mind to coach? Have you been getting some feelers out?
Well, we have a gentleman in the room that we've talked to about it. Clearly not a woman, but he has had some experience in coaching at the youth level with boys and girls. So we are definitely considering that as a good option. But I know, we have to look through all the options as well.
And one other question, would they partner with the wrestling boosters that's currently, the boy and girl booster program would be together?
Yeah, I think, that would be something we could determine. I think initially you would look for some support from that program, but I think it would have to, if we were going to separate the programs with, different schedules and different coaches, it might actually end up being an additional booster club.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Enrico, if the board were to, give us the green light, would there be anything relative to PIAA and any types of forms, notices, transactional types of things that we need to do that would preclude the young ladies from competing next year as an official program?
I don't believe so. I think we're still within that parameter to do so. I think the only thing we have to be careful about is the competition points, with how many events that we participate in. And as long as we have a separate PIAA sanctioned program for girls wrestling, it wouldn't interfere with that on the boys' side, which is really the main thing that we want to make sure we separate it for. Because if they did participate in tournaments together under the same umbrella, then we'd have to adjust our scheduling a little bit for the boys. Yes.
What would your timing be for the board to approve this and then to get your registrations in with PIAA and obviously local leagues such as they are?
So ideally, we would by middle of June, end of June, have everything in place that we could then present it to PIAA, hire a coach, go through that this summer. And as we know, that does take some time, so we want to make sure we get somebody on board before August 1st. I would ideally hope that would be the timeline we could follow. That would give them time and opportunity to put feelers out, try to recruit some student athletes within the school district to come out and participate. We obviously would do what we could on our social media platforms to promote that. I know Dr. Schaefer has a strong enough presence. He could generate some interest But I think participation is the main thing for us, and that if we don't have that in place by August 1st, to have a winter wrestling season will be challenging.
What kind of, when you say participation, what kind of numbers
I-
are rolling around in your mind there?
Yeah, I think in the first year, if we end up with 5 girls, I think that's a win. You know, I could be blown away, and we can end up with 10 or 12 in year 1, and I'll leave that up to some people who have more influence than me in that group. But I do think that it would be an incremental growth. I think we would see something like from 5 to 10 in year 1, 10 to 15 year 2, and then, you know, hopefully get to about 20 to 25 wrestlers at some point in the next 5 years.
Yeah, a couple things, you know, come to mind. One is, you know, we talked about this last year, and, you know, I have at times informally talked to the board and would be fully supportive of this. I think this is a great opportunity for our, you know, our young ladies to engage in another opportunity and in the winter and into the spring as it falls now. And you may not, this may be more for Kevin, but as we think about like downstream implications, here we are kind of making a decision at one end of the continuum, but at the other making sure that we are having discussions and informally, and I think formally as well, with our junior high and age group programs to have a strong feeder program.
Right.
Most of the time when we walk into it, there's an apparatus already in place with all the junior comments and all the other organizations. So I guess this really isn't a question, but something to keep in your mind, and how can we be supportive of that? Because at the end of the continuum here in the high school, we're only going to be as successful as the programs that we
Feeder
support for our youngest girls.
Yeah, feeder program is definitely, you know, something that like I said, I think personally, if we could approve it to go with the 2 programs at once, I think it would be beneficial to do so. And then we could essentially have those practices happen at the same time. You just can't have junior high athletes competing against varsity athletes, but they could be in the same room, and then that would allow one coach and, say, an assistant coach to really manage the group well. I think that's the vision that I would push forward with. So, yes.
Do the elite, seasons coincide with each other, boys and girls?
Yeah, they do. And, you know, like I said, the benefit of it is if we have a separate team, we don't have to follow the boys' schedule. And that's a positive and a negative sometimes, right? If the numbers get to the point where we need to get busing and figure out mat space and all that, then having separate schedules could get tricky. But with the way it is right now, if you're a team that's wrestling a boys' schedule and you happen to have a few girls wrestlers, you go to another team that has a few girls wrestlers, then they get mat time at the same venue.
And looking forward and practicing positive intent as we open up our bids next Wednesday at 11 a.m. For the middle school project, there is slated there and an alt bid a gymnasium that has 2 locker rooms,
Right.
that are nice and would be well equipped to handle plenty of participants. So.
Agreed. Yeah.
I have one more question.
Sure.
So Enrico, are you suggesting that we approve tonight a Abington Heights girls wrestling program? Or because it states right here it's a high school girls. So would you rather us approve a girls program that would include a feeder program at once? Would that be a better?
I would prefer that. Yeah, I would prefer that if it were possible.
Could we
to do
amend?
so.
Could we amend this or? No?
Yeah, what I'd prefer to do would be to say, we can kind of have you are welcome to discuss it and provide me with any direction. And I would be ready at our May 21st meeting, if the board wanted to do so, is to have a motion up on the board. And then what I would provide to the board would be a one pager that kind of lists the cost and some of the plans. for approval. That way I could have it up 24 hours in advance, if people will be able to see it. And that seems that if it would give you, that would seemingly give you enough time to
Yeah,
get everything off the ground and running.
that'd be great.
I definitely think that's a good idea because I think for something like this, we would like to see some public input if it's out there.
Okay, sure.
And I think, a budget or some idea, throwing a dart at the board even with a budget is going to be helpful too.
Great.
But I think everyone's very positive about it.
Okay. You're welcome. Any other questions? All right. Thank you very much.
Since there's a pseudo proposal on the table, and I'm probably already not following Robert's rules, feel free to give me your informal direction. I think I just heard yours.
Yeah, I think this is great, but I think we need to put a little bit more flesh around it.
Okay.
And I do think we need to have public comment about that, because the worst thing we could do is approve it and then have a whole bunch of people coming in and saying you shouldn't do this for these reasons. I would rather put it out there and have something people can look at and comment on. And that those comments may in turn help us to better zero in on exactly what we want to do.
I would just agree. I think we've all been enthusiastic about this the several times it's been presented, but let's have the presentation in front of us that he provided and the numbers and whatever. I can't imagine that it wouldn't move forward, but at least we'd be well informed when we make the decision.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think that waiting for our next meeting or so is going to put anything behind with them, but I'm all in favor of doing a complete program for the girls' wrestling rink.
So Enrico and for all of those here in the audience in support, what we'll do is I know I read through your proposal, have everything. I'm going to skinny it down. I'll talk to Jim, make sure that there's anything that I haven't forgot. And then what I'll do is I'll get that in the board's hands, and then I'll post it on the agenda as an action item for May 21st. Yeah.
One little tidbit?
Yeah.
I would like the board to know, in District 2 wrestling, there are 28 schools that participate in District 2 wrestling. 24 of the 28 have registered girls teams. Abington Heights is one of 4 schools that does not have a girls registered team. Some of these schools don't even have a girl wrestling, but they registered it, so it's there if needed. In Abington, Blue Ridge, Elk Lake, and Scranton are the only 4 in all of District 2 that do not have a girls registered team.
Okay.
When does it need to be registered by?
I do not know dates. I looked at the Pennsylvania Wrestling website. It shows boys and girls. And I mean, I just know you don't even have to have a wrestler to have registered, because girls fail to come out if there's not a girls team, so they develop one, and then as it comes.
Yeah, and Enrico will look it up and we'll figure all that. And we would not be, this is a presuppositional statement, and we would not be engaged in like any type of a consortium or collaborative. It would just be Abington Heights. Just to make sure that we don't have any, downstream, yeah, exactly. You know what's coming and you know my answer. All right, we're all on the same page. We're already thinking roster spots. That's good. All right, now it is Jim's turn to talk some budget. Yeah. I got it wrapped around here.
right, well, appreciate everybody having me here tonight to talk about a few topics, budget among them. We really want to focus in on the current year and how we're doing. There is a lot going on here at Abington Heights. I don't need to tell you that. But usually when there's a lot going on, there's money moving, which means the business office is firing on all cylinders. So I'm coming to report back to you how we're looking in the 24-25 fiscal year. Going to talk a little bit about the health insurance fund. Also going to talk about the governor's education budget proposals, how that might impact us and how that can inform us when we take action on the 25-26 budget. Quick mention of the bid opening that Chris had already talked about and how that debt financing might factor into play. And then a Lackawanna County reassessment update. We checked in with the county to get a little more updated information how that impacts us. So let's get right into our revenue situation. So every year when we pass the budget, we don't know what's happening with the state. And a lot of what you see here is on the far right column is green. So green is good news. So I tried to color code it so that we can just pick it out really easily. So real estate taxes came in almost $250,000 more than expected. Earned income taxes, they just keep continuing to tick up steadily. So about 3% up year over year, according to our Berkheimer reports. Real estate transfer tax, homes are expensive and we're still selling them. So we do see that transfer tax is up about $150,000. Delinquent real estate tax, thanks to our tax collector and Janice in the business office, they were able to get our delinquent tax notices out earlier than ever before. And so they worked really hard on that to clear it. And you can see the results in the collection coming in sooner. So we see a positive variance coming in there. Investments, even though interest rates are coming down, we did get some exposure to some longer-term U.S. Treasuries. We do expect to crest $1 million here again for the second year in a row on earnings on our investments. Basic ed funding, we budgeted for 2%. It came in a little less than that. But they put on the bottom line is where the state put the money, the Ready to Learn Adequacy Supplement, which came in at $562,000 more than we budgeted. So that was a nice surprise, and we're hoping for a repeat surprise this year. And also the pupil transportation subsidy was another surprise when Chris Pasco, the transportation director, submitted the report that we ended up getting reimbursed more based on our cost structure and reimbursability structure. So all good news there. Now when I flip the slide to the expense side, you'll see a little bit more red, but so we'll kind of go into it. But first, any questions on the revenue side of how we're doing this year? Okay. Now on the expense side, salaries overall, we did have some positions unfilled, and then we had, I believe there was like a special ed position that we had to fill in addition. So everything kind of balanced out, and we're looking to break even basically in the salaries and come in right where we thought. Benefits, slightly under budget on a couple of the smaller life insurance, dental, those types of things. We're seeing a positive variance there. Purchase professional services, and I have the key on the next slides just to kind of let you know what that is. So that's administrative services, educational services. So like my service to the district for finance is a professional service. Technical security, so our SROs, that would be a professional service. Architects, lawyers, accountants, engineers, and doctors, they would all kind of fall in that category. And you can see we're pretty significantly over budget in that area. But when you comb through the data, there are a couple things that stick out. NEIU billings, I'm projecting that to be $250,000 of that $398,000. Also, comp ed is a part of that, and the legal fees that we pay to those lawyers who file the suits. Let's see. And then the other one, is we did a one-time curriculum training type investment that was a six-figure training. I forget if it was science or social studies. I don't recall, but there was a one-time expense that was invested into curriculum in that line item. Purchase property services. What you see here is a lot of maintenance, buildings and grounds, custodial cleaning, that's contracted custodial cleaning, rentals, and any type of construction services. So repairs, things like that, and a lot of things have broken, and we've had to repair a lot of things district-wide. However, I'm just trying to point out the one-time things that are in here. A damaged gym floor is one of them. We currently have a PO out to do the gym floor this summer, and the purchase order reflects in the expense line item. So we would back out $134,000 out of that number. So it's not quite as bad as it looks on that line item. It was a South Ave.
South Ave. My question was, so that's showing as an expense, however, that was covered under insurance, is that correct?
Yeah, so here's how it works. So it shows up in the number because we put a purchase order out for it. So it's called an encumbrance. So you account for every expense that you have. I'm calling that out so that you don't think that it's actually $373,000. It is actually $126,000 less than that number. I didn't want to mislead anyone by presenting,
And there's also one-time expenses in here. So for instance, so everything from a dump truck to, we've had some E-rate projects relative to our technology infrastructure.
Yeah, a lot of one-time investments here is kind of a theme of how we arrive at some of these numbers. The E-rate project, for example, there were two, $117,000 for networking at the high school, okay? And we just cut that purchase order last month, so looking forward to getting that done in the summer. Let's see. And then in the 500s, or the purchased other services, you can see there's a negative variance of $231,000. That is primarily comprised of transportation overages. We had a few special ed vans I understand that we had to add, and athletic trips were over budget a bit. So that's where that explanation comes from. And then property equipment was our dump truck and our Ford, I guess it was an F-350 or F-250 truck. So that's what that negative variance is there at the 88,460. Debt service and reserve, that's the budgetary reserve that is remaining. So that's the positive variance there. Hope I didn't go through too much detail there. Is that, any questions on the expense side of things? Yes.
Jim, what expenses normally come in at the end of the year? What are the ones that you don't necessarily pick up until the end of the year? And then secondly, what numbers do you keep your eye on? Which ones are you concerned that definitely can move a lot between now and the end of the budget year?
So glad you asked that question, because I failed to mention this projected under/over budget is actually driven by detail of the past couple of years, and to capture that trend at year end. Maintenance is usually the place where the purchase orders are kind of outstanding, or something breaks right at the end, and we'll have Tom, do we have 30 to fix this? And the answer is usually we don't, but we have to, and that type of thing. Transportation's measurable. That's a big expense. You can see the trend with our bigger contracts like Met's cleaning. You could see where that's at. You'll see that we can pretty handily project where the cyber charter schools are going to come in. The bigger numbers are sort of under control. Like the health insurance, we're just going to pay what we said we were going to pay. The NEIU bill is a scary one, the special ed costs, because when they reconcile it, from time to time, you get a really big number. They've tightened up their procedures there, but that's one that, will keep me up at night until I receive that. The school districts that we send kids to are generally slow at billing. Scranton is one Chris and I were talking about this morning and last night. where we send kids there, and I don't usually get the bill. One of the accounts says 0 in it, but I know we're gonna spend 120,000 there. So those are the types of bills, usually in the special ed category, that are most uncertain to me. The for-profit places have no problem sending us bills all the time, so. Did I answer the second question, though? Okay, great. Any other questions? All right, and this is the key. If I didn't explain any of them clearly, just please let me know, and I'll circle back around. But that's the key for when I post this for later, so that you can kind of see what is going into those object codes. So now the major expense drivers, kind of review from what we're talking about. Health insurance benefits are not reflected here as a problem because we choose what to pay ourselves. And I'll show you here in a second why that's a problem. They are just skyrocketing. We are not alone in this. Every school we work with, every school we talk to is having a problem with prescription drugs, the cost of them. Cyber charters, and we've seen increased enrollment, I'll show you that in a second, and increased tuition rate. And Chris and I were having this conversation. I'm not sure if people know, but the PDE 363 is the form that you calculate the tuition rate that you pay the charter schools. Did you know that part of that calculation is the charter school tuition that you pay to the charter school? Then if you pay more to them, your rate goes up more. So, you know, usually we talk about artificial caps on ready-to-learn block grant or pension and things like that, but that's just a new talking point that I'm trying to kind of get out there, because what you pay them, and you pay them more, you then pay them more the next year because you paid them more. It's just beyond me. Maintenance and grounds, a lot of deferred maintenance. I don't think that's a secret here. A lot of HVAC, plumbing, electrical that we're working on district-wide, so we do see that as a cost driver. Special education, staffing, and tuition and services are really the key drivers, and then we also saw transportation is a driver there. Salary and fixed costs, obviously we pay 3% for the next, I believe everyone's under contract for a year and a half to 2 years, so that's 3%. And then debt service is fixed for now, but as we lead into that bid opening next week on Wednesday, we'll have a series of choices to make there. And that debt payment can be anywhere from 0, if we take advantage of capitalized interest. Because of the timing of this, there'll be one payment in next year's budget. It could be anywhere from 0 to $2 to $3 million, depending on how much is borrowed. So that's a major consideration. And we're hoping to get a baseline when we open these bids and some direction as to what to budget for this for next year. And this is kind of a reason we're not bringing you the 25-26 budget tonight, because that is a really major number that would be great to have before we go into next year's budget. But back to the health insurance, we talked a lot. I think, you know, at the risk of talking about it too much, I don't think we've talked about it from the fund balance perspective, though. And you know, back in 3, 4, 5 years ago, we were having discussions: is that too much, right? And it sat at $7 million, between 6.7 and 7.2 for my entire career here, until you can see the trend here. You know, we had a bad year, and they were like, it might be an anomaly, and then we had another bad year, and then now it's a trend, right? So it's not coming back. We see the prescription drug issue here to stay, and we can see that balance dwindling, and we now have less than half over a 5-year period.
And that trend really in the middle, when you see the 6733, is only because we took from our savings to pay for our operating. Otherwise, you would see that coming down at a more rapid rate. But you know, we can't continue to do that. And a way that good organizations kind of work through this, and we have great partners in our union, is to just kind of have discussions about what are the options available. And as Jim mentioned, every organization, public and private, that provides healthcare insurance to everyone within that organization is facing the same challenges. And you just have to be very adaptive in this space. And it's really not about, I talked to Jim about this a lot, is like I don't use the word, or I try not to use the word, like to save. We are challenged to regress back to the mean. And it's a very difficult space, but as you can see in our current trend, you know, we won't be able to sustain for much more than a year and a half in there. We have very good healthcare consultants, and as I said, we've got great partners in our union leadership, and we've already started talking about what some of our options are and what we can do, and that's just kind of the conversation that's ongoing that we have. But it is sobering to see these, and this is pharma. This is prescription. If you took a look at our medical, that has a couple undulations, and that's how I would describe it, as just undulations. We're in that 4.1 to 4.5 category. But anybody that cares to kind of ask me about healthcare, the way I frame it is in household terms. Every month, Jim and team cut a check for about $600,000. So that's what we're paying a month.
What's the minimum fund balance we need to continue to self-insure?
So, I mean, it's a tricky question. Now, we went from a year and a half to a half a year, actually less than half a year in funds. So once you get into, say, 3 months, and if you have a shock claim month, you're paying it directly out of the general fund, all right? Because the Highmark's not going to float, or RX Benefits is not going to float you the money. So you would then be exposed to paying those claims live out of your data, and they're completely unpredictable. You know, sometimes you have a 400,000. We used to have $200,000 to $400,000 months. Now we have $500,000 to $800,000 months. So it's much different.
At a time when I first got here, I could have told you that, you know, maybe we had absent rebates, like a $6.5 million a year, where we would take a look and say what we have in our savings is a year's worth. But it exploded at such a rate that it's really hard to calculate. And in addition to that, whether this is fair or not, I deem it to be fair, is that we pay approximately $400,000 a year in stop-loss insurance. So I look at this as a 13-month cycle. And if you're not, you know, familiar with the stop-loss insurance, and I explain it probably like a superintendent and not a business administrator, but we have insurance to protect us against some high-end claims. So when the high-end claims come in, our stop-loss insurance kicks in and pays. But having stop-loss insurance is not a panacea, because it goes up every year. We take it to bid, and there's only a few people that bid on it, and every year we see an increase. So it's in our best interest to work with all of our partners to try to find a way to reduce our pharma expenses, because if we reduce those pharma expenses, then there will most likely be the reduction in some of the high claims. And so if we can reduce our high claims over a longer period of time, then what I would hope would happen is that our stop-loss insurance would go down in a perfect world. But is that an accurate representation?
It is. We've been talking a lot of healthcare, so we're living it here. So onto, very quickly, cyber charter and then brick and mortar charter enrollments. You can see where we started the year and what we based our budget off of, and where we're ending the year here. We just had an uptick of 5 from March to April. And So this explains why we had the negative variance in that 500 category. This is the tuition to those folks. And just so you can see who we pay what to, we broke this down, and you can see that Commonwealth Charter Academy is by far our largest cyber charter school.
Yeah,
And then, go ahead.
and some of these are Pyrrhic victories, if you're familiar with that. It's like, you win the battle, you lose the war. And in some cases, what we do, as Jim had posted, is oftentimes our approved private school providers and some things where we send kids to kind of a variety of different institutions for different reasons. And in some cases, it is in our best interest to route some students to a cyber, in contrast to some other schools. And again, I always say, for anybody who cares to ask, I was with a local legislator, and I gave an example of Abington Heights because we had a nice round number and it made a lot of sense. And what I said was, and it's up in the budget now, is we need codified charter reform and a flat fee, and that's been proposed at $8,000 for cyber charter. We need that. That would save us close to $800,000 a year. In my opinion, I think that there is very little difference between regular and special education services and programs in the cyber charter space. Yet, what we pay for a regular education student is $12,000, and what we pay for a special education student is $23,000. There was a pseudo charter reform this year where we received, I'll just call it a stipend because that's what it was, of $100,000. Well, we're still $100,000 in the hole because every year, as Jim mentioned, we have a formula that we do, and every year it goes up $2,000, right? So I've got, let's just say I have 100 kids. In 1 year, it goes up $200,000. In part because of the money that we're paying them, that doesn't get deducted from it. It is a vicious circle, and it is not in the best interest of the education community at all. And I relayed that to every local, state, federal lawmaker that I've spoken with in the past 2 months. I mean, I think that it borders on criminal. And we need this passed. Any type of line item reform in the Pennsylvania state budget is a symptomatic solution. It's a fix that fails. We need something that is codified into law to pay these outrageous sums. Isn't right by our students, isn't right by our families, isn't right by our taxpayers in greater communities. So any opportunity that you have to talk to local legislators about the cyber reform, please do so, because it makes a huge difference.
And I would add, if they have the defense mechanism that we fixed the formula last year, if you just take a look at the special ed cyber versus special ed brick and mortar, we got, about an $800 discount between the two? And then if you take that 800 times our brick and mortar cyber enrollment, there's 7 kids there. So, that reform, quote unquote, saved us, $5,000 to $7,000. Actually, for half a year, we got the reform, so half of that number. So that's not real reform in the calculation. So just a kind of a quick review. We had the early preliminary budget passed back in January of 2025. And just to be clear on what happened there, we passed that budget with leaving open the option to pursue exceptions. The state let us know that they slipped this little line into a piece of legislation that said if you receive rate of learn block grant funds, you are not eligible to go over but they didn't ever publish regulations or anything on that, and I still don't think they exist. So we're at the 4.7% index. The good news there, the offset was our millage, our assessed value grew by just about an equivalent amount to make up for that. So the major unknowns, what we're looking for and looking for guidance on as we prepare the 25-26 budget. The state budget obviously will show you what's proposed. That bid opening, I think, is probably the biggest unknown here that we'll be keeping an eye on next week. Medical insurance costs, it's not that they're unknown, it's just how sustainable is funding that and how do we sort of claw back some of that cost. Special education, it just never stops going up in cost, and then the cyber charter. We have final budget passage scheduled for June 18th, but I will be back before then to present to you the 25-26 budget once we can kind of dial in some of those numbers up there. Yes.
I just want to say too, if anybody did the math on this as you were taking a look at FY '25, our current fiscal year, is that we would be projecting, and Jim did a great job taking a look at the detailed budget, where we currently are, and then making some forecasts for the last couple months, is somewhere in that vicinity of 800 to $1 million in surplus, which is where we want to be given our vision for the facility improvements. As you remember and you know that we're capped with our Act 1 index as we should be, but when we start to think about future construction projects, we have to be thoughtful, strategic in how we prepare for them so that when it's time that we have worked up to a spot where we can pay for our debt service, right? So yes, we still have to work hard to manage our expenses and be smart about this, simultaneously thinking about the future and how we work up to a point where we can pay the debt service that's associated with any of the improvements that we make. And along the way, we start to see some of these peaks that we have to address, and that's the challenge that the board faces. Jim and I took a look at the healthcare today, and I looked at Jim and I said, I can't believe I'm saying this, but that's 6 mills. Just the healthcare alone going up. And it was in January that I spoke to the board when we presented the first preliminary budget, where I said that it was a little painful and we had to budget 1.425 additional monies from our operating budget to insurance. And that paralleled the conversation that we had about why did our borrowing capacity go down from X to Y? When you've got one item that is commensurate with 6 mills, that explains it. And again, this is not an Abington Heights problem. This is an issue that I am involved with not only in Pennsylvania, but across the country, and Jim as well. Every single organization, public, private. I'll be in a meeting and I'll see someone from Geisinger, and we will be having the same exact conversation. To a small business downtown that has 10, 15 employees, again, talking about health insurance. It's this common denominator and common language that I wish I didn't know, but now I do know. So that's important to recognize, because in the past, sometimes if we had a little bit of a surplus, we would put this into the healthcare. But again, that was a symptomatic solution, and now it's just it's gone off a cliff that way.
It certainly has. And you've helped me land the plane here on this by taking care of some of my closing thoughts on the budget. I just want to mention, yes, we're projecting about $800,000 to $1 million surplus in the current year. However, there's an equal or greater amount of loss coming in the health insurance fund. So on an operating basis, we might be a little bit behind overall. But how do we reconcile a preliminary budget deficit of $1.9 million when I'm telling you that we have $1 million possible surplus on the way? I don't think it's a far cry to do the quick math and say $1.45 million additional in health insurance, $675,000 estimated debt service additional, and 3% increases on all staff levels. Those right there add up to that number. So just keep that in mind as we try to put context to a large deficit going forward. However, also think about that we have not budgeted for what the governor has proposed yet, which is here. And Chris, you're a little better at talking about this slide than I am. You want to take it?
Yeah, sure. What this represents is from PA Works, which is a very reputable think tank in Philadelphia, and they've got this for every single school district. And it's very simple. You were taking the governor's proposed budget, working those formulas through and saying, hey, if everything came to fruition that Governor Shapiro proposed, what would it look like for Abington Heights? And I do have to say that last year we were very close to that, minus the pseudo charter reform. But that would represent about 907,000. My calculations are it's a little higher based on if cyber charter reform came in the way I think it was. We also have in here what they call the adequacy gap, which is last year we got about $562,000 that came to us as an adequacy adjustment, which is based on a formula that is far too complicated to even articulate. But they take a whole bunch of numbers, including the poverty index, and a bunch of other things, and they say, okay, this is kind of where you should be. And that's in contrast to, say, someone like Scranton, that number may be 9 million. Ours was 562. They are proposing another 562 to us this coming year, which would be $1 million over those 2 years. This stems from the court case that the Department of Education in Pennsylvania lost, where they said you have to provide, fair, reasonable funding to all school districts, particularly those ones that were, I would just say, financially distressed. So that's part of this a calculation. And like I said, we get this money through the Ready to Learn block grant. So it's not necessarily delivered through our subsidy. And if you are feeling cynical on a Wednesday in a sick, twisted turn of fate, the formula that Jim and I talked about where you pay, I cannot beat up on this enough, cyber charters, that PA 363, during the Corbett era is where we had a lot of cuts. I lived through that as a principal. And when Jim does the formula, right, where to see what our rate is, there are certain expenses that we can write off. And one of them was the Ready to Learn block grant. In Abington, we use, for the most part, the Ready to Learn block grant for teachers. Class size reduction, reading specialists, math interventionists. We were able to write off in 2013 about 90% of that, which makes sense. That money's coming to us, and we are distributing it to our classrooms. That's the way it's supposed to, Ready to Learn. That's the way it's supposed to be learned. Last year, the state decided to distribute the adequacy money through the accountability block grant. So what happened was, now our Ready to Learn block grant was probably close to $600,000 or what, $800,000. Was it total? So $800,000. but yet we could only write off $128,000 because it hadn't been adjusted. So all that extra money goes into a formula that pays the charters. And this has been in the paper a lot. We're fortunate that we're not in some situations that a lot of other school districts are, where they are having to use all of their adequacy money to pay for cyber charters. So all these things, all this minutia, all this detail that we're talking about that probably shouldn't be in a 30-second soundbite when talking to your legislator, I did. I made Bridget sit down with me, and I had like 5 copies of the PDE 363. And I was very outspoken, and I said how I felt as a superintendent and what I felt was fair and reasonable for Abington Heights. What I said, in part, was you need to know about us where $7 out of every 10 comes from local resources, right? 2.9 comes from state sources, and about 0.1 comes from federal sources. To me, that's not fair and reasonable. There's some disproportionality there. We need additional resources, and we need cyber reform, because that's the only way where a school district that has very strong financial planning, that has a very solid and strong S&P rating, that is deliberate, thoughtful, and strategic, it becomes very difficult for a district like us to plan for facility improvements that we need. We've been in the business here in Abington Heights for over 193 years. We've lost many schools to fires. We've rebuilt so many schools. And now we're seeing construction costs that have gone up by over 90% in the last 3 years. So these are the messages that I deliver, and that's why I'm talking about them tonight, because I'm hoping somebody hears them and then has that conversation with coffee with somebody that, can hear this and talk about this and talk about what these impacts are on our local budget. And despite that, we know what our present looks like, and we will continue to work through our expenses. And what we saw up here is not a surprise to me, because we have been making all sorts of adjustments. So we should not have a 25-year-old rusted out dump truck that's a safety hazard anymore. After 25 years of tons and tons and tons of salt, yes, it was on its last legs, and we made it through the last season. We had to purchase a new one, and I know our crew would take care of it. Our infrastructure and technology, which when I came here was running Windows 2003 in 2022, and we were breaking down all the time. We did have to make an investment there, but we know that that long-term investment is going to pay off. Yes, it hurt for a year, but we know that that investment will pay off, specifically for educational outcomes, because our kids have access to more reliable and updated services, as well as our teachers. That's my take. Could be wrong.
And speaking of hot issues, everybody get their reassessment in the mail from the county? Just quick update. So what's that?
You have to use the microphones.
Oh, yes, I appreciate it. So assessments went out, and now I can't shop in the grocery store in the Abingtons because everybody asked me what's my tax bill going to be. And the answer is, frankly, we don't know. We just don't know. And the question we'd have to ask ourselves is, could you sell that property for what they say it's worth, right? And if you believe otherwise, then you file your appeal. But as far as our planning goes, the district needs to know what those values are so that we can estimate what our new millage rate will be, roughly. just so we can communicate to people in orders of magnitude of what it's going to look like, right? So we are at, 140 some mils. It's not going to look at all like that. It might be 1.4 mils. It may be something very, very small. So, but we got some updates from the chief assessor at the county as to when we can expect some data from them. So the new assessment roll will be turned over to Lackawanna County on June 1st by Tyler Technologies, okay? So that means new assessed values will be mailed out to taxpayers in July. That's the plan. So we all will receive our actual assessed values, okay? After June 1st, they will provide us access to preliminary numbers, and then we can crunch the numbers, and we're not going to, take them as the gospel, because there are 3 months of appeals that will happen, and then they will be finalized on November the 15th, and they did not tell us when we can expect the final assessments. We're fortunate because we're not a early calendar year taxing authority. We mail it out in August, so we don't really have to worry about turning it around quickly. But for planning purposes, we sure as heck want that data so that we can start communicating to stakeholders what it's going to look like.
And another message, I too get that question, and I refer them to you, Jim. But one of the first things that I say is, like, by law, the reassessment has to be revenue neutral. So we cannot take in any more money. In fact, that is how the millage gets calculated. So when we have that new assessment data, whenever that's done, the county will then, take a look at what our most current numbers are, and then come up with a millage rate. Okay, so that's what I open with all the time. It's revenue neutral for us. We don't come up with it, but we can't get any more money. That's how we get that new millage rate, right? So whenever this comes out, we'll take a look at it. We know what we bring in, and we may have some kind of guesstimates, but I believe Jim to be right in that, you're gonna be looking at a pretty low number. Like he says, it's not a 140-something number. It's going to be single digits. The worst thing that you could do is take your assessed value and then multiply it by the current millage rate. That's nightmare territory. And I will tell you through experience, I went through one in Delaware County sometime, and that's exactly what I did. As a principal, I didn't know anything about millage. And I multiplied it, my jaw dropped, I said, I'm gonna have to move out, that's it. And I called, and they explained the whole process to me. So just to assuage any concerns out there, we just have to wait and see.
And then, another piece to the process that we learned is they're going to lock these in, I believe, January 1, give or take. And then the, Clark Summit Borough and the county and South Abington Township, they'll all use those numbers, but then people will build, people will add on to their houses, split parcels, maybe they'll demolish a structure. All those changes will need to be tracked in the meantime, so that we can capture any additional revenue that comes from new construction in that 6 to 8 month period. So hopefully we'll have access to that data. I'm not sure what that'll look like, but our friends at PASBO tell us that's kind of a crucial part of it, to make sure you're, up to date with that time lag and the assessed values. But so we'll be reporting back as we learn. This is kind of an emerging situation. We're trying to stay on top of it. Any questions?
Yeah, a couple. So we have to approve our budget for June 30th, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So we have an opportunity to stay within the Act 1 index of raising taxes of 4.7%.
Mm-hmm.
Will we still have that opportunity to do that with this new formula with,
Yes, it's just the initial calculation has to be revenue neutral, right? So you're going to equivalent, whatever that old assessed value to the new assessed value, the millage rate has to be converted, and then you make a decision on what you're going to do after you equalize the mill and reset everything where it needs to be. So it's the same exact process as far as, you know, what you'll see. Now, the schedule on the PDE 2028 is going to look a little more complicated because I have to check the box, is there a reassessment, and then another schedule pops up. But it's really just the same process. It's just a redistribution of the tax burden throughout the district, right? It's a relativity exercise. You know, if you know, my assessed value obviously went up, but relative to others, did it go up as much as?
It's like a norm reference criteria. So
Yeah.
if you're sitting in the 50th percentile, you'll probably be, even when they reassess it, you're probably going to be sitting in the 50th percentile. So this is a gross understatement. But like if you were, your house was last, let's say it was last assessed and it was $150,000, and then you see your next one comes in at 350. Well, maybe those ones at 350 went up to 550, and so on and so forth. In fact, I read in the paper, I think Tyler usually says, well, expect one third to go down, 1/3 to stay the same, and 1/3 to go up.
okay, thanks, Jim.
Did I answer your question, though? Okay, okay. Great.
Just
Yes.
one quick question on these 3-month of appeals. The school district is not actively involved in this
We were
3-month
looking for
process.
clarification on that. I don't think that we are. We didn't get a clear answer on that one, but I'll ask a little more specifically. It seems like it's kind of the appeals board. I don't know if we are allowed to have representation there, though.
What I asked Jim to get clarification on is because for the most part, I haven't been involved really in any residential. My question to Jim, to an attorney that we've worked on in some bigger cases with some commercial properties that we already have agreements with, that we've been in longstanding court disputes with. Those are my questions. The big companies, where we are, what it does to current agreements, that type of thing.
I'll try to get you a better answer on that. All right. Any other questions? Appreciate it.
Jim, thank you very much.
I appreciate the time. Thank you.
Okay, next part of our meeting is public comment. If anyone would like to approach the board, we ask you give us your name, where you live, speak for about 30 minutes. Excuse me, not 30 minutes, 3 minutes. Woo! And if possible, normally we have, I see 4 people standing up. If you're all together, that's great. If not, if you're one by one, I'd say just. Hey, they're all together.
We are all together.
Okay.
Go for it.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity. My name is Ariana. I am a coach with the Keystone Mountain Bike team. This is a team that practices at Lackawanna State Park. And beyond being a coach with the Keystone Mountain Bike team, I'm a mom of several of the riders on the team, and I also work for the the Pennsylvania organization. So the Keystone Mountain Bike team is a nonprofit team. We run our local team actually as 2 separate teams that practice together. We are part of the Pennsylvania Interscholastic Cycling League. We use the acronym PICKLE to describe ourselves, so I'll use that moving forward. PICKLE is an organization that has 75 plus teams across the state, and we're one of 35 plus leagues across the country. So it's a large organization, well-funded organization, and our local team is who I'm here to talk about. We're asking for the opportunity to advertise the team within the schools. The team is made up of boys and girls in grades 6 through 12. And while it's interscholastic, they compete against student athletes in the middle school against other middle schoolers, and then high schoolers against other high schoolers. We have about 40 kids on our team in any given year, and half of those student athletes come from Abington Heights. So the other students are from other area schools, but like I said, we operate as 2 teams combined as one, the reason being that anytime we have more than 10 or 11 student athletes on a team, we need to branch off and form a new team. So we have a composite team of a bunch of kids from area schools, and we actually have a Keystone Abington Heights team that doesn't have any connection to the school, does not use any branding of the school, but does represent the school at events. But we have our local team, what am I thinking, like jersey and wear that we use. Anyway, our ask is just that we have the opportunity to advertise through middle school and high school student athletes, just so that they know that this opportunity exists. As far as funding goes, our team fundraises and completely supports the team, so we'd be asking for no funds. When students and coaches register with the league, they are fully insured through the league, so there's no ask of the school for that. And our coaches are primarily all either parents or individuals that love mountain biking and are cycling enthusiasts. We all get training through the league itself and are not paid staff, all volunteers. Trying to think if there's anything else. I think that's it. We just have a few people that wanted to speak from different lenses about the team.
Hi, thank you. My name's Ethan Horitz. I'm a senior this year at Abington Heights High School, and I have just finished up my 7th year on the Keystone team last November. I started in 6th grade as early as I could, and I've been a part of the team and an athlete every single year since then, up until last year as I've aged out, and I'm hoping to even come back and coach over this summer. I can confidently say that this sport has changed my life. It has given me a passion for the sport of cycling. I have recently, over the past couple of months, rode over 1,200 miles in training towards a 100-mile event that I just completed on April 27th, a few weeks ago. And you know, that was 8 hours on the bike in one day that I would have never thought I would enjoy had it not been 7 years on a team before that. It has brought so much to my life. I've made friends from all across the state that I still am in touch with, friends from grades above me who are now in college, and friends from grades below me who I still frequently keep in touch with. It has brought so much joy from a different perspective of sports. Going into 6th grade when I joined, I had tried all the different sports. I've been on rec leagues for baseball, basketball, soccer, anything, and I never liked any of them. So going into 6th grade when I decided to try Keystone, I thought it would just be another sport that I didn't really enjoy, dread going to practice every other day, and it completely changed my perspective when I started going. I joined on a bike that wasn't the best for the trails and was not the fastest kid on the team. I never have been. But I have grown to love the sport more than anything else in my life. It has become such a joy for me. It has become an escape even in my personal life outside of the sport to just get out of the house for a few hours and go for a bike ride. It has given me an escape for all sorts of problems. Everybody I know has said that I am happier as a person when I come back from a bike ride because it is my time alone from the world. I love nothing more than this team. My father has become a coach. My brother is an athlete who is 2 years younger than me. And my family has become quite involved in the sport with lots of travel all over the state to different races. And it really has changed my life. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's a tough act to follow. My name is Joe Tierney. I'm a lifelong resident of the Abingtons, class of 1979, if you need to know. I come to speak to you tonight as the Lackawanna State Park Trail Care Crew representative. We're a volunteer organization, nonprofit, 529, and we oversee the 28-mile trail system in Lackawanna State Park and Countryside Conservancy lands. We've built the trails, we maintain the trails. Since 2016, when this team started, they have put in over 3,000 volunteer hours into that community resource for everybody to use in this community and beyond. That is huge. And it's not by accident. The coaches, the team, the state league, and the national organization make it part of the culture of the organization. It's a higher purpose. It's not just bikes. It's not just shovels. The bike is used as a tool. It's used to build character with the child, to build community, to build a strong mind and a strong body. You just heard it from Ethan. I know of no other sport that builds their own play field. Golfers don't build the golf course. Football players, they don't build the stadium. These guys have built their own trails for the benefit of the community. It is just the coolest thing in the world. I'll end with one project that we did. I'll be brief about it. There's a tunnel, a pedestrian tunnel in the state park. It runs under Route 407 right near the park office. Built in 1970 when the park was put in. Disappeared in 1980. It was poorly built. The entrances were poorly built. Got overgrown. The team made it their mission for an entire summer to meet every Tuesday night to renovate that tunnel by building out the entrances, rock armoring it, making it dry. And the first night, they dug out 40 years worth of mud out of that tunnel. And at the end of the tunnel was this huge pile. It looked like a giant Hershey kiss. And if you could see those kids, I mean, they looked the same, just filled with mud, but a big white smile. And what they learned that night, and they took with them, all those kids are gone from the team right now. They've graduated. You know, they learned about the community. They learned about hard work. They learned about, you know, commitment, and that it takes a strong body and a strong mind to sit there and shovel 40 years worth of mud out of that tunnel. So I leave you with, I ask that the board and the superintendent consider opening up middle school in Abington Heights for promotion of the team so that other kids know this team exists and can have this same opportunity. No kid sits on a bench, and every kid gets to play in this organization. Thank you for your time.
I have the photos of the tunnel trail that day of work if anyone ever wants to see it. My name is Cindy Copley. I'm a school counselor at the high school. Ariana asked me to speak tonight because back in 2015 when Mike Kuhn developed the league for Pennsylvania, myself and 4 of my good friends who have been riding and racing since about 2006, we know this is an amazing community, an amazing area for cycling. So we got together and we sat down and we got to work and developed Keystone mountain bike team. The first year, like when Enrico was referencing, I hope to get five girls on the team. We were hoping for the same. That first year, we had almost 30 students from this district, across the other districts, and it was phenomenal. I still have that first year team photo hanging in my office because it was being part of developing this team is like one of the more prouder things I've done in my life. You know, just seeing the impact it has had on students, kids who were never part of the traditional sport. They showed up for the team like, yeah, I ride a bike. I don't have a very good bike, but it doesn't matter. You know, we welcome them. You know, we teach our kids to welcome everybody. It's about equality, inclusivity, and we want everybody to have a great experience. Whether they decide to race in the fall or not, they're still a part of the team. They play an important role, and they learn so much about themselves. We've seen, like Ethan said, parents get involved, buy bicycles. They haven't ridden a bicycle in maybe 20 years, but they get bikes, and they're, you know, they're on their bikes now, and they're still riding and racing. So opening this up and just being able to advertise within the middle school and the high school, I think this would create a good opportunity for students who don't necessarily fit or want to be part of that traditional team sport, but still be able to represent Abington, represent their local community. You know, and just seeing the student athletes, you know, win state championships, win awards for trail work. This is just such a great opportunity, you know, not for just like them and their families, but also for Abington Heights, because we have such a strong presence, you know, for the Keystone Mountain Bike team. So again, you know, just to see the impact it has had, you know, in the last 9 years has been pretty amazing. And I'm, you know, happy to have been part of it and continue to be a part of it. And we hope you'll take it into consideration to let us put it out there to our community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. Schaefer, any comment?
Yeah, you know, because, you know, I want Gretchen to stay here longer. You know what? I agree with you. I have no problem with the advertising, but I want to lean in a little bit and push. One would be, I would say, you know, consider this as consider starting a club. That's not I think that you're opened up more if you want to do that. We can advertise, but also think about if you want to have a club. I think that that provides some more opportunities that way. And, you know, certainly look and invite me. I want to go out. And then shoot me videos because, you know, I like posting all this stuff on social media, and you kind of like surprised how many kids are on social media and see something and be like, you know what, I could do that, or I like to try to do that. You know, like I'm constantly telling Miss Hillebrand where her kids are on their little scooters. Like I'd like to get the scooter brigade I see around town on some pedal bikes, as I bet their mothers and fathers and cousins and uncles would and aunts. So we'll get together and we'll figure out a way. I don't mind the advertising, but you know, when I say push, then I want you to think about, you know, how do you have a greater impact? And then, and it's such a giving community like this, what do we do, you know, to provide more opportunities for kids? Can we all of a sudden get some bike donations and things like that? Sure.
Mrs. Leonard is familiar with this, but when I was a long-term sub down at the middle school before I got moved up to the high school, I did apply for a grant through Specialized to, it's called the Outride Program, and what they do is they select a handful of schools each year around the country, and they provide bicycles, they provide a curriculum, you know, to make a club. I applied for that grant, I got it, I got moved up to the high school, COVID happened. So when I did attempt to see if there would be other staff members to be able to organize and facilitate that at the middle school. At that time, no one was interested in, because it was totally a volunteer, you know, moment, you know, but I wasn't able to have anybody take it and run with it. And that's a program that really needs to have, you know, every program needs to be structured, organized. And when I contacted Specialized and I said, you know, thank you for the opportunity, unfortunately, like I can't move forward with the grant right now, and then COVID happened. They did express that if the interest ever arose again or the opportunity to contact them. Because in middle school, you know, when we start our students at the 6th grade level for the team, that's what Outride wants to do. And it doesn't have to be kids just on the team. It's for anybody. And so it was a really good opportunity. So I just want to say that if it was something that we ever wanted to look to push into the school at some point, there is an opportunity and there is support for it.
Great. Thank you. Thank you.
Very much.
Thank you guys. Thank you.
Yeah, as you're talking about a club, as you were talking about a club opportunity, it's something that we would absolutely strive to do. We have, of the 75 teams across the state, I would say half are already school connected. But we've hesitated to bring that to Abington just because we wanted you to know that the program even exists. And we wanted to make sure that we were able to be sustainable with students from Abington wanting to have access. So we would love to know how to go about becoming a club team for Abington. I'll also add that a student athlete that graduated in 2022 I think Hannah Puttkamp was a student here at Abington. I believe she graduated in 2023, but in 2022, she was the female state champion for the state of Pennsylvania as a member of our team and an Abington graduate. So you have key student athletes already here who are winning awards for trail work and winning awards on the podium, racing, representing the school without actually school affiliation so far.
That's fantastic.
Go ahead.
Well, that's fantastic. What we'll have is Dr. Tioni has a form. You could fill that out. Look, we approved last year, or was it the year before? We've got a classic car club. I think people will be surprised to know how many clubs that we have. So certainly, you can get that, and we can do that in short order.
Okay,
Yep.
that's excellent. Thank you so much.
Take care.
Thank you, thank you.
They just moved their classic car. She didn't move it, right? Their car show.
Any other public comment? Okay.
We're still working on maintenance things here.
Evening. Mark Stoller, Waverly Township. I was here last month and spoke to the board here about challenges not only in the community, in the state, in the county, and hearing the budget report tonight reinforced my thought of what I highlighted last month. My hope is that you'll keep an open mind on what's happening here in the district, especially next week when you see the bids for the building project. I understand there's a lot of needs. I understand there's a lot of wants. And I appreciate your responsibility to navigate through that. I just don't know if the district is ready for the challenge, added challenge, of a very large building project. Just by way of calendar, you open the bids next week? Is that a public meeting?
Yep. 11 o'clock, Wednesday.
Right here?
Yeah.
And then you have another board meeting the following week?
Correct.
What do you all do during that week with your open bids?
The bids will be opened and then written down. We have a construction management company that will go through what they call the D-scope process to make sure all the bidders have everything that they need. So they have their construction bonds, like or all the bids consistent with the specs, that type of thing. Then we'll make a recommendation to the board if a recommendation is warranted. So as an example of when it may not be warranted would be, we had an Act 34 hearing here, so we're required by law to follow certain procurement procedures as well as borrowing limitations. So if we are 8% over our estimated project fund, then we'd have to go back to an Act 34 hearing. So in that case, they wouldn't be making recommendations for the 4 primes.
So your next move is basically contingent on what you hear next week?
Yeah, that's fair to say.
Okay.
Yep.
Appreciate the time.
Thank you, Mark.
Okay. Excuse me. Any other public comments? Very good. Dr. Schaefer, let's move on.
All right. This time, Mr. Ackert asks the board consider a motion to approve the notice of dismissal and authorize district administration to terminate employee 1145 effective immediately.
So moved.
Second.
On the motion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Mr. Abdallah?
Yes.
Mrs. Henderson?
Yes.
Mrs. Hillebrand?
Yes.
Mrs. Karam? Mr. Moran?
Yes.
Mr. Robeson?
Yes.
Mrs. Tierney?
Yes.
Mr. Acker?
Yes.
7-0.
Mr. Acker, ask the board consider a motion to approve the personnel report as follows.
So moved.
Second.
On the motion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Abdallah?
Yes.
Mrs. Henderson?
Yes.
Mrs. Hillebrand?
Yes.
Mr. Moran?
Yes.
Mr. Robeson?
Yes.
Mrs. Tierney?
Yes.
Mr. Acker?
Yes.
7-0.
Mr. Acker, ask the board consider a motion to approve the 24-25 extended school year professional and support staff lists.
So moved.
Second.
On the motion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Abdallah?
Yes.
Mrs. Henderson?
Yes.
Mrs. Hillebrand?
Yes.
Mr. Moran?
Yes.
Mr. Robeson?
Yes.
Mrs. Tierney?
Yes.
Mr. Acker?
Yes.
7-0.
Mr. Acker, ask the board consider a motion to approve the amended attachment to policy 808.
So moved.
Second.
On the motion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Abdallah?
Yes.
Mrs. Henderson? Mrs.
Yes.
Hillebrand?
Yes.
Mr. Moran?
Yes.
Mr. Robeson?
Yes.
Mrs. Tierney?
Yes.
And Mr. Acker?
Yes.
7-0.
Mr. Acker, ask the board consider a motion to approve the 25-26 support staff calendar.
So moved.
Second.
On the motion?
Yeah, I have a question on this. This is adding a day to the support staff's contract, working one more day? So this is an amendment to their contract? No.
No, it just, their contract has language that they work one extra full day. So that day is reflected on October the 6th, which is a conference day for our students. But in talking to principals and needs around professional development, that day is a day where there's no student responsibilities in the building, and so it can be a full day of professional development for our support staff.
Right, okay, thank you.
Roll call, please.
Sorry. Mr. Abdallah?
Yes.
Mrs. Henderson?
Yes.
Mrs. Hillebrand?
Yes.
Mr. Moran?
Yes.
Mr. Robeson?
Yes.
Mrs. Tierney?
Yes.
Mr. Acker?
Yes.
7-0.
Mr. Acker, ask the board consider a motion to approve the supervisor of teaching and learning job description.
So moved.
Second.
On the motion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Abdallah?
Yes.
Mrs. Henderson?
Yes.
Mrs. Hillebrand?
Yes.
Mr. Moran?
Yes.
Mr. Robeson?
Yes.
Mrs. Tierney?
Yes.
And Mr. Acker?
Yes.
7-0.
Mr. Acker, ask the board consider a motion to approve the contract between Abington Heights School District and Communication Associates LLC to conduct an independent educational, occupational therapy, and speech and language evaluation for student 1F.
So moved.
Second.
On the motion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Abdallah?
Yes.
Mrs. Henderson?
Yes.
Mrs. Hillebrand?
Yes.
Mr. Moran?
Yes.
Mr. Robeson?
Yes.
Mrs. Tierney?
Yes.
Mr. Acker?
Yes.
7-0.
Mr. Acker, ask the board consider a motion to approve the Coffee Inclusive ITEP registration agreement to provide vocational and transitional programming to special education students.
So moved.
Second.
On the motion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Abdallah?
Yes.
Mrs. Henderson?
Yes.
Mrs. Hillebrand?
Yes.
Mr. Moran?
Yes.
Mr. Robeson?
Yes.
Mrs. Tierney?
Yes.
Mr. Acker?
Yes.
7-0.
Mr. Acker, ask the board consider a motion to approve the Waco Incorporated contract to conduct paving at Abington Heights High School.
So moved.
Second. On the motion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Abdallah?
Yes.
Mrs. Henderson?
Yes.
Mrs. Hillebrand?
Yes.
Mr. Moran?
Yes.
Mr. Robeson?
Yes.
Mrs. Tierney?
Yes.
Mr. Acker?
Yes.
7-0.
Mr. Acker, ask the board consider a motion to approve the settlement agreement between Abington Heights School District and Student 1G.
So moved.
Second.
On the motion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Abdullah?
Yes.
Mrs. Henderson?
Yes.
Mrs. Hillebrand?
Yes.
Mr. Moran?
Yes.
Mr. Robeson?
No. My biggest concern with this is the invoice charges the district, it looks like to me what, there's padding or double dipping here. There's an invoice for $1,008 billed for the intake meeting on February 19th. There was also, that was at 1.8 hours at $560 an hour. He also billed $896 for preparing for that meeting, for that same meeting. So that's an expensive meeting that, based on what I've seen, is above and beyond what the regular intake services are for something that doesn't include complex matters of federal law or anything like that. There's no federal case involved, and it's not complex litigation. So the standard due process complaint that we're dealing with, this is highly irregular. So I do not approve of it. There's a lot of other things too, but I think we should really start looking at some of these bills because they're outrageous. So I'll be voting no in the future, especially from this attorney. Actually, the other thing is, I've seen the template that he uses. It's the same one. It's the most expensive template at Abington Heights. Thousands and thousands of dollars for the same template. It's just outrageous. We got to stop it.
Mrs. Tierney?
Yes.
And Mr. Acker?
Yes. Thank you.
6-1.
I wasn't sure where we were on comments or on voting. Thank you very much.
Mr. Ackert asks the board approve the Abington Heights Middle School lighting pre-purchase.
So moved.
Second.
On the motion?
Dr. Schaefer, can you explain the pre-purchase recommendation?
Sure. Actually, items K, L, and M are somewhat all related that way. There are certain aspects of the middle school project that start a little earlier. So the first stage of that is some of the summer work. And part of that is the access road off of Newton Ransom Elementary. So what you see is a pre-purchase where we can save some funds and get that started a little early. It still would be under the construction budget, so it's not separate from. And this is for lighting, the inlets. The item M is for an agreement with ICS. That's our construction management company. And that addendum there is just adding on the fencing that otherwise would have been somewhere else, but we can get it more efficiently with them, and then they'll get that process started because if the board does proceed, we'll be able to start the preparation.
Thank you.
Can I just clarify that should the bids come back not in our favor, the road is still beneficial to the school district? That it'd be useful to have it?
Absolutely.
That is accurate.
Absolutely. Thank you. Any other comments? Roll call, please.
Mr. Abdullah?
Yes.
Mrs. Henderson?
Yes.
Mrs. Hillebrand?
Yes.
Mr. Moran?
Yes.
Mr. Robeson?
Yes.
Mrs. Tierney?
Yes.
Mr. Acker?
Yes.
7-0.
Mr. Ackert asks the board approve the Abington Heights Middle School precast inlets and manhole pre-purchase.
So moved.
Second.
On the motion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Abdullah?
Yes.
Mrs. Henderson?
Yes.
Mrs. Hillebrand?
Yes.
Mr. Moran?
Yes.
Mr. Robeson?
Yes.
Mrs. Tierney?
Yes.
Mr. Acker?
Yes.
7-0.
Mr. Ackert asks the board consider a motion to approve the ICS General Conditions Agreement.
So moved.
Second.
On the motion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Abdullah?
Yes.
Mrs. Henderson?
Yes.
Mrs. Hillebrand?
Yes.
Mr. Moran?
Yes.
Mr. Robeson?
Yes.
Mrs. Tierney?
Yes.
Mr. Acker?
Yes.
7-0.
Okay. I I think as part of the attachments on the website, they have a list of use of facilities for April 2025. I think it stretches for something like 10 pages. It's informational. Is there any unfinished business for this evening's meeting? Is there any new business? Yes, Mrs. Tierney.
It has been asked of me to request to the board and to the superintendent that is it possible to add on more trophy cases at the high school for all of our athletics that have, and our clubs that have done incredible jobs that are bringing in an awful lot of trophies and awards. So they're looking for a larger space, both high school and middle school.
Thank you.
Just a quick reminder, Mr. Acker, our IT meeting is next Wednesday at 6:30. A lot of good stuff on the agenda. The agenda's posted, so you could take a look, but we'll be here.
Thank you very much. Anything else? Mr. Abdullah, you must have some news to present. I have nothing. Whoa. Okay, then I'd ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
So moved. Please.
Thank you all for your
We have
patience.
snack.